Have you ever watched a clueless tyrant climb to the summit while the true visionaries fade into the shadows? In every era, whether in the blood-soaked courts of ancient Rome or the gleaming boardrooms of Silicon Valley, we witness the same brutal paradox. The least qualified outpace the brilliant, and the shallow outshine the profound. It isn't chaos or chance, it's a deliberate choreography etched into the architecture of power itself. Imagine a crowd roaring its approval as a bombastic billionaire barks empty promises, while a thoughtful philosopher armed with genuine insight stands alone, drowned out by the roar of applause. The heart of this contradiction beats with a savage rhythm. History doesn't reward depth. It worships the spectacle. Close your eyes and feel the tension crackle in the air. You sense the collective yearning for certainty, the desperate grip on illusions that glitter brighter than truth. In this landscape, wisdom is burdened by nuance while arrogance strides forward, unencumbered by doubt. Think of Machiavelli, exiled and betrayed, forced to watch from afar as incompetence paraded their hollow certainties across the Italian peninsula. From his lonely villa, he witnessed the grand charade of power. Rulers seduced by their own reflection, subjects enthralled by theatrical displays, and real talent buried beneath layers of flattery and fear. This ancient drama isn't confined to dusty tomes. It pulses through today's headlines. When a leader's missteps become global embarrassments, when every reckless decision is laid bare, it's almost unthinkable that they still stand unchallenged. Yet the spectacle persists, fueled by our collective hunger for simplicity in an increasingly complex world. We cling to charismatic performances even when we sense the rot beneath the veneer. Because deep down, it feels safer to follow a confident illusion than to wrestle with unsettling truths. But here's the sting. This isn't merely a flaw in others, it's a vulnerability within each of us. The same mind that craves meaning can be seduced by swagger. And until we awaken to this persistent design, this Machiavellian script written in the DNA of power, we remain actors in a drama we barely comprehend. Understanding the contradiction of history is the first step toward reclaiming our own agency. Only by seeing through the spectacle can we begin to elevate substance over showmanship, and perhaps, this time, let wisdom take the stage. As the dust of political theater settled, Niccolò Machiavelli found himself cast out, betrayed by the very system he had served with unwavering devotion. Once a rising star in Florence's intricate dance of alliances, he had negotiated treaties, brokered peace, and whispered counsel in grand palaces. But when power shifted and a new dynasty seized the reins, suspicion replaced praise. In the dead of night, armed guards stormed his home. Documents were seized. Friends vanished. Machiavelli, accused of conspiracy, was dragged into a damp cell whose walls seemed to echo every promise he had ever made. Behind iron bars, the man who once strode through corridors of influence became a faceless prisoner. Fear gnawed at his resolve as interrogators twisted his own words against him. Each question was a dagger, each accusation a fresh wound to his soul. Torture tested his flesh and fractured his spirit, leaving scars that no balm could soothe. In the darkest hours, Machiavelli's mind became a battlefield, shame and rage warring with the fierce conviction that truth, however dangerous, was worth defending. Then came exile. Stripped of title and income, he was banished to a remote Tuscan villa, its olive groves indifferent to his suffering. The wind whispered through gnarled branches as he wandered the same dusty paths he had once traversed as an honored envoy. Days blurred into weeks. He watched sunsets bleed across the sky, once symbols of peace, now reminders of a world that had turned its back on him. Loneliness pressed in like the stones of his cell, threatening to crush his creative fire. Yet from this crucible of despair, a new Machiavelli emerged. Deprived of power, he discovered a clarity that courts and councils had long obscured. In the hush of dawn, he unrolled parchment with trembling fingers, determined to capture the unvarnished truth of rulership. He channeled his anguish into prose sharp as a rapier's thrust, dissecting ambition, deceit, and authority with clinical precision. With every line, he reclaimed a piece of himself, forging a work that would outlive princes and popes alike. That exile, once a sentence meant to erase him, became the forge of his legacy. Machiavelli transformed isolation into insight, pain into purpose. In the quiet of the countryside, he penned the blueprint of power's true mechanics, challenging idealism with brutal honesty. His banishment taught him that influence thrives not on virtue alone, but on perception, fear, and the artful dance between ruler and ruled. And it was here, amid olive trees and memories of betrayal, that the seeds of the prince were sown, seeds that would germinate into a revolution of political thought, forever changing how humanity understands the game of power. In the shadowed stillness of his Tuscan villa, Machiavelli gripped his quill as though it were a blade ready to slice through the polished facades of power. Exile had stripped him bare, but it also unveiled the raw mechanics behind every throne. He refused to indulge in lofty ideals. Instead, he resolved to craft a manual not for utopia, but for the ruthless theater of political survival. Thus, The Prince was born, a work as sharp as it was unsettling, destined to rewrite the rules of leadership forever. Driven by betrayal and fueled by isolation, Machiavelli combed through the annals of history with relentless scrutiny. He resurrected the triumphs and failures of emperors, dukes, and cardinals, teasing out patterns of conquest and collapse. Each tale of betrayal became a warning, each victory a lesson in calculated cruelty. His prose crackled with urgency, condemning naivete and exposing the raw incentives that governed human ambition. He didn't merely describe tyranny, he distilled it into a science. Night after night, candlelight flickered across scattered parchments as Machiavelli wrestled with nuance and contradiction. He acknowledged that virtue mattered, but only insofar as it served survival. Mercy, generosity, truth, noble traits, yet liabilities in a world where a single misstep could spell ruin. He dared to argue that appearances eclipsed substance. Men judge by the eye, he declared, and few know what you are until it is too late. His words cut deep, challenging every preconception about honor and morality. The intensity of his conviction pulsed through every chapter. He mapped out strategies for securing new territories, maintaining loyalty, and wielding fear as effectively as love. He warned that fortune favored the bold, yet advised prudence when storms struck. No longer a betrayed exile, Machiavelli had become a clairvoyant chronicler of ambition, his pen forging a blueprint for rulers who sought to dominate, not to dream. When the final sentence was inked, the prince stood as a stark mirror reflecting the darkest impulses of power. It was an assault on idealism, a call to confront the brutal calculus that underpins every regime. Machiavelli sent his manuscript to Florence, both hopeful and apprehensive. Would his candid counsel redeem or condemn him? Centuries later, the shockwaves of that audacious text still ripple through boardrooms, parliaments, and social feeds. The prince did more than expose the mechanics of domination. It forced every reader to ask an unsettling question. Do we follow the virtuous or the victor? In daring to write the unvarnished truth, Machiavelli reshaped our understanding of leadership and left us grappling with the perilous bargain at the heart of every quest for power. Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few experience what you really are. In the aftermath of crafting The Prince, Machiavelli's focus sharpened on a single unsettling truth: perception is power. He observed that in every court and council, the ruler who mastered illusion reigned supreme, while the one who clung to substance sank beneath waves of deception. To him, leadership was less about virtue and more about the artful performance of it, a relentless masquerade in which the crown sat not on merit, but on meticulously curated appearances. Picture a grand Florentine banquet hall, torchlight dances on polished armor, noble guests murmur approval at a duke's thunderous proclamations, yet behind closed doors, his coffers lie empty and his armies demoralized. Machiavelli saw the contrast as painfully vivid, how the velvet cloak of confidence could conceal rusted daggers of incompetence. He felt the sting personally when a humble advisor of proven insight was cast aside for a flatterer who mastered the theatrical bow. In that moment, Machiavelli recognized that the masses do not seek authenticity, they hunger for spectacle. Alone in his villa, he replayed these scenes with searing clarity. He recalled the tremor of betrayal when a seasoned commander whose victories spoke volumes was overlooked in favor of a brash newcomer with a flashier crest. Each slight, each misjudgment, etched a blistering lesson into his heart: reality mattered little. It was perception, the echo of triumph, the illusion of strength that dictated allegiance. Fueled by this revelation, Machiavelli dissected human psychology with ruthless precision. He traced how fear and hope could be manipulated through the simplest gestures: a well-placed smile, a public act of mercy, the strategic parade of military might. He admonished that, in the crucible of rule, The facade of benevolence could quell rebellion as effectively as actual benevolence, and sometimes more so, because illusions carry no burdens of consistency. Today, as you scroll through curated feeds and polished personas, Machiavelli's warning resonates deeper than ever. We devour images of confidence and conviction, often mistaking them for competence. We elevate influencers whose expertise fades under scrutiny and dismiss voices of caution as timid. In the relentless theater of modern power, perception still trumps substance. Understanding this mechanism does not cynically erase the potential for genuine leadership. It challenges us to look beyond the mask. It urges us to question the dazzling veneer and seek the substance beneath. For in a world where appearance wields such formidable sway, the first step toward true agency is learning to see behind the illusion. In the sun-drenched agora of ancient Athens, Socrates wandered with restless curiosity, his every step an act of rebellion against complacency. He questioned statesmen, poets, and craftsmen alike, unraveling certainty with a single simple phrase. "I know that I know nothing." That confession, radical in its humility, rippled through the city's consciousness, exposing the fragile arrogance of those who mistook bluster for brilliance. Yet this fearless pursuit of truth came at a grave cost. While Socrates probed the depths of human ignorance, a rival force surged through the streets. The demagogues roar. With booming rhetoric and sweeping promises, these vocal opportunists dispensed easy answers to anxious citizens. They offered black-and-white solutions to complex problems: security in exchange for scrutiny, certainty in exchange for sacrifice. Their words struck like thunderclaps, bold, unquestioned, irresistible. As Socrates guided his followers through layers of doubt, his critics branded him a corrupter of youth. They feared his probing questions would shatter their illusions and undermine the authority they clung to. In the stone-walled courtroom, the philosopher stood alone against a chorus of accusation. Each indictment: impiety, corruption, sophistry, was a calculated move to silence a voice that refused to pander. The tension in the air was palpable, a charged current between the flickering torches and the hushed crowd. When the verdict fell, it was not logic but fear that carried the day. Socrates, the man who prized self-examination above all, was condemned to drink hemlock. His measured calm as the poison coursed through his veins revealed a final, haunting lesson. True wisdom demands sacrifice, and those who dare to see beyond comforting illusions often pay the ultimate price. Contrast this with the demagogue's triumph, an aura of infallibility that glows brightest in the absence of accountability. While Socrates lingered over every nuance, the populist seized the moment, exploiting dread and desire with calculated flair. Where the philosopher admitted uncertainty, the demagogue raged with unshakable conviction. And in that clash, the crowd chose spectacle over substance, opting for the fiery certainty that demanded neither thought nor burden. That ancient trial still resonates today. We elevate voices that shout certainty, while we marginalize those who whisper doubt. In a world drowning in information, the temptation to follow the loudest cry rather than the most thoughtful mind remains our greatest vulnerability. Socrates' legacy endures as both a warning and a beacon. In the arena of ideas, humility and critical inquiry must stand firm against the seductive roar of unquestioned confidence. Have you ever met someone so confidently clueless that you wondered if ignorance itself was their greatest asset? This isn't a fluke of personality, it's a cognitive glitch carved into our minds. Psychologists David Dunning and Justin Kruger uncovered a startling truth: the less you know, the more you overestimate your expertise. Picture a novice soldier fresh to the battlefield, striding boldly ahead, certain of victory. He mistakes raw courage for skill, blind to the complexities that seasoned commanders navigate daily. Meanwhile, the veteran officer, burdened by years of hard-won lessons, pauses at every crossroads, haunted by the ghosts of past mistakes. This imbalance between confidence and competence fuels a dangerous illusion. In the theater of power, swagger often trumps substance. Machiavelli, ever the astute observer of human folly, described rulers who appear stronger than they truly are. He might have recognized the Dunning-Kruger effect in the haughty smile of an inexperienced tyrant, mistaking bravado for brilliance. In exile, Machiavelli learned that those who grasped the basics of image management could ascend thrones, while genuine architects of statecraft lingered in obscurity, paralyzed by self-doubt. This phenomenon seeps into our daily lives. Think of the loudest voice in a meeting, dismissing nuance with sweeping declarations. They command attention not because they hold the best ideas, but because they speak with unwavering certainty. Under the glow of modern spotlights, social media feeds, corporate corridors, political rallies, we still mistake volume for value. And when we reward that volume, we unwittingly elevate the least prepared to positions of real influence. The emotional toll runs deeper than professional missteps. When the self-aware mind grapples with uncertainty, it wrestles with fear. The fear of being wrong, the fear of losing face. That fear can silence insight, driving thoughtful individuals into the shadows while less informed peers seize the stage. We yearn for clarity even if it's false. We recoil from complexity, even when it holds the key to genuine understanding. To break free, we must embrace intellectual humility. True mastery begins with recognizing our blind spots and welcoming feedback even when it stings. We can cultivate environments where questions are valued over pronouncements, where learning is prized above posturing. Only then can the thoughtful voices emerge from the din, guiding us with reason rather than rhetoric. The Dunning-Kruger effect may be hardwired, but it isn't destiny. By shining a light on our limitations, we chip away at the illusion that competence is measured by confidence alone. In doing so, we reclaim a piece of what Machiavelli sought to expose, the profound power of truth beneath the mask of certainty. In the late 2010s, Adam Neumann strode onto the global stage with the swagger of a rock star, promising to transform office life into a utopian community. With his charismatic grin and boundless self-belief, he painted a vision of workspaces that pulsed with creativity and purpose. Investors, starved for the next big disruptor, surged forward, fueling WeWork's valuation into the stratosphere. Neumann's confidence became a commodity, a dazzling beacon that blinded even seasoned financiers to the cracks beneath the surface. At first glance, it seemed like a miracle of modern entrepreneurship. Co-working hubs bloomed across cities, each one a shrine to Neumann's infectious optimism. He spoke in grandiose terms of a global we movement, anointed himself CEO and head of community, and the world applauded. But behind closed doors, the machinery was creaking. Metrics that mattered, profitability, sustainable growth, disciplined management, were dismissed as old-school burdens. Instead, Neumann chased ever bigger dreams, pouring capital into lavish personal perks, private jets, vacation homes, and equity-splashed parties that glorified excess. As the IPO loomed, tension rippled through boardrooms. Whispers of reckless spending and opaque governance mutated into open alarm. Analysts probed the business model, demanding clarity on revenue streams that had been eclipsed by theatrical expansion. Yet every challenge was met with the same counterattack: unshakable confidence. Neumann's larger-than-life persona cast a spell, encouraging investors to ignore red flags in favor of his evangelical pitch. The illusion held until it didn't. When the public markets finally demanded real results, WeWork's valuation imploded almost overnight. In a matter of weeks, billions evaporated, careers unraveled, and the company teetered on the brink of collapse. Neumann, once hailed as a visionary, became a cautionary emblem of hubris. Employees who had believed in the mission felt betrayed, watching their futures disintegrate as the founder's bravado revealed itself to be a fragile facade. This modern fable echoes Machiavelli's timeless warning: perception may ignite assent, but substance determines survival. Neumann mastered the art of seeming infallible, rallying global support with every charismatic keynote. Yet when scrutiny replaced applause, his empire faltered. The WeWork saga lays bare the peril of gifting confidence unchecked power, a stark reminder that in the theater of influence, the brightest illusions cast the darkest shadows. For those of us wrestling with our own quests for meaning, WeWork's rise and fall offer a mirror. Ambition can burn with a fierce, intoxicating glow, but without grounded purpose and accountability, it becomes a wildfire that consumes everything in its path. In the end, true leadership demands more than bravado. It requires the courage to temper vision with discipline, and the humility to face reality when the curtain falls. In Machiavelli's world, the first fortress a ruler must build sits not atop distant walls, but within the halls of his own court. He understood that true security sprang from loyalty, not ability, that the sharpest swords in the enemy's arsenal posed less threat than a single dagger wielded by an ambitious advisor. Imagine the imperial palace of Rome under Commodus, emperor and son of Marcus Aurelius. Machiavelli would have felt a pang of horror as he read of capable administrators, men who once steered the empire through storms, being cast aside like dusty scrolls. In their place rose a chorus of flatterers, each eager to echo the emperor's whims. These sycophants bowed with theatrical flourish, their smiles hiding knives sharpened by fear. The result was a court draped in velvet treachery, its corridors humming with quiet conspiracies. From his Tuscan exile, Machiavelli dissected these betrayals with clinical precision. He envisioned the crown's weight pressing down, not merely on a ruler's shoulders but on his judgment. A leader surrounded by competence threatened his supremacy. A leader surrounded by loyalty secured it. So he advised, choose advisors who owe everything to your favor, who tremble at the thought of defiance. In return, you forge a chain of allegiance stronger than any chain of gold. This framework of loyalty breeds a paradoxical calm. On the surface, the court shines with unity, no dissident voices, no uncomfortable truths. Yet beneath the gleaming veneer, decay spreads. Without critical insight, the ruler crashes headlong into hidden pitfalls, blind to the rot gnawing at his foundations. Citizens sense the hollow echo of decision-making. The empire's heartbeat falters. Centuries later, this Machiavellian playbook repeats itself in boardrooms and backrooms across the globe. We've seen CEOs elevate yes-men over innovators, stacking executive teams with echoes rather than experts. We've witnessed governments staffed by loyalists whose primary qualification is devotion, not dexterity. And time and again, those administrations crack under the strain of unchallenged authority. For anyone wrestling with their own search for meaning, this tragic dynamic offers a stark lesson. True growth demands courage, the courage to welcome dissent, to embrace discomfort, to risk betrayal in exchange for truth. Because a fortress built on loyalty alone may feel impenetrable, but it cannot withstand the siege of its own stagnation. Machiavelli's counsel warns us that the safest path is not always the truest one, and that empowering competent voices might just be the bravest act of all. A hidden battle for power unfolds not on battlefields but in the corridors of the mind, where rulers wage war against their own insecurities. Machiavelli, peering from exile, recognized that ambition breeds a relentless pressure, the fear that true talent might eclipse the throne. In his darkest hours, he dissected a brutal truth. Those closest to power are chosen not for their skill but for their likeness. Imagine a seasoned general, battle-scarred and wise, standing before a new duke. His victories speak volumes, yet the duke's gaze flickers with unease. Every flawless campaign is a reminder of his own inexperience, every strategic insight a threat to his fragile authority. So the general is quietly pushed aside, replaced by a sycophant whose only qualification is unwavering obedience. In that moment, the palace walls echo not with courage, but with the hollow applause of conformity. Machiavelli felt the sting of betrayal keenly. He recalled the pang of watching capable advisors silenced by subtle slights, whispers in shadowed antechambers, invitations mysteriously rescinded, reputations smeared by rumor. From his Tuscan refuge, he mapped the psychology behind these maneuvers: homophily, the instinct to surround oneself with those who mirror our biases, our fears, our flaws; and competence threat, the gnawing anxiety that true excellence might expose one's own deficiencies. The result is a court sealed in mediocrity, an echo chamber where innovation suffocates, and dissent is punished as treason. Those few who see the rot tremble with guilt, torn between loyalty and the compulsion to speak truth, haunted by the knowledge that silence only tightens the noose of incompetence. Machiavelli understood that this isolation is the seedbed of downfall. A ruler who fears insight more than ignorance invites decay into every corner of his domain. This ancient drama still plays out today. In modern boardrooms, visionary leaders are often eclipsed by executives who flatter rather than challenge. Governments recruit loyalists who echo policy rather than question it. Creative teams languish under managers who fear being outshone, stamping out original ideas in favor of safe, predictable paths. The air in these institutions grows thin, heavy with the unspoken dread of excellence. For those of us navigating our own quests for meaning, this shadow play is a powerful lesson. Real growth demands courage, the courage to welcome perspectives that unsettle us, to embrace friction rather than flee from it. By seeking out voices that challenge our assumptions, we break the cycle of homogeneity and insecurity. Only then can we build communities, whether in leadership or in life, rooted in authenticity, not fear. Because true strength lies not in surrounding ourselves with mirrors, but in forging bonds with those who illuminate our blind spots and push us toward our fullest potential. In the realm of human endeavor, some arenas demand instant reckoning fields where error translates directly into catastrophe. Picture a surgeon in the operating theater. Hands steady over a patient's open chest. Every decision, every incision carries the weight of life and death. There is no room for pretense. Incompetence is exposed immediately in the cold light of the recovery ward. Or consider the bridge engineer whose miscalculation unleashes ruin beneath the weight of traffic. In these crucibles, the system itself shines as a beacon of accountability. Success is rewarded, failure is unforgiving. Machiavelli, observing from his quiet exile, would have understood these domains as rare but illuminating exceptions to power's general chaos. He recognized that only structures with built-in feedback loops can reliably elevate genuine talent. In a well-calibrated system, the virtuous circle of competence births more competence, forging a lineage of skill that grows stronger with each challenge. There, the stakes are transparently clear. If you falter, the consequences are immediate and irrefutable. Contrast this with political and financial arenas, where the feedback mechanisms are muted, delayed, or obscured. In opaque bureaucracies and fickle markets, mistakes can be hidden behind layers of red tape or absorbed by abstract spreadsheets. A flawed policy may fester for decades before its true cost emerges. Reckless financial wagers, insulated by complex instruments, can balloon into systemic collapse long after the deal is signed. In these hollow halls, leaders cloak failure in jargon, and the machinery of power continues grinding, oblivious to its own rot. History offers stark illustrations. The Soviet Union's centralized bureaucracy, insulated from public scrutiny and immediate consequence, allowed inefficiency and corruption to metastasize until the entire superpower crumbled. Meanwhile, the 2008 financial crisis revealed how Wall Street's opaque structures and short-term incentives incentivized reckless risk-taking. Derivatives multiplied in shadowy corners. And when the facade of prosperity shattered, the fallout cascaded across the globe. For those standing at the crossroads of purpose, these divergent paths carry a potent lesson. True excellence flourishes where systems demand it, where accountability is a living force, not an occasional afterthought. If you seek to grow, align yourself with institutions built on transparent merit, not hidden loyalties or delayed repercussions. Seek environments where mistakes become teachers, not secrets to be buried. Machiavelli's enduring insight reminds us that individuals alone cannot conquer the inertia of broken systems. To elevate competence over charade, we must craft frameworks where accountability is woven into every process. Only then can the brightest talents rise, and only then can leadership escape the hollow echo chambers of unchecked illusion. In building such systems, we honor the promise of genuine progress and offer ourselves a path toward meaningful mastery in a world too often dazzled by empty spectacle. In the end, the most enduring victory in power's brutal game is won not by force, but by clarity of vision and the courage to confront uncomfortable truths. Machiavelli's exile and his ruthless dissections of ambition were not paeans to cruelty, they were wake-up calls to a world blinded by spectacle. His final lesson pulses with urgency. If we wish to navigate the currents of influence without being swept away, we must build our lives on unwavering self-awareness and integrity. Imagine standing on a crumbling stage, the cheers of the crowd fading into silence as the glittering mask of leadership shatters at your feet. That moment of reckoning defines every ruler, every visionary, and every seeker of purpose. Machiavelli understood that appearances may fast-track you to the summit, but only substance can hold you there when storms arrive. To cling to hollow certainties is to invite collapse. To embrace nuance is to cultivate resilience. He urged us to examine not only the world around us, but the world within. Recognize the fear that craves simple answers. Feel the pull of overconfidence when you step beyond your depth. Acknowledge the temptation to surround yourself with mirrors instead of challengers. These are not personal failings. They are human vulnerabilities etched into our evolutionary wiring. Machiavelli's true gift was to shine a light on these shadows so we might choose a different path. For those wrestling with existential questions, yearning for meaning in a landscape of illusions, this lesson is a roadmap. Build your inner court with advisors who challenge your assumptions. Design systems that reward honesty rather than flattery. Cultivate a circle rich in diverse perspectives where intellectual humility is prized above hollow certainty. Only then can you discern the difference between thunderous rhetoric and genuine insight. Machiavelli's closing verdict is both stark and hopeful. The game of power has never been fair, but awareness of its rules transforms you from pawn to player. When you peer beyond the facade and demand accountability from yourself and from others, you become an architect of authentic leadership. You no longer chase applause, you chase truth. In our era of viral soundbites and curated personas, Machiavelli's words ring louder than ever. Let his penetrating gaze guide you. Don't be seduced by the roar of confidence. Seek the still, steady voice of reason. Question the dazzling spectacle until you find the bedrock of integrity beneath it. That is the final, profound lesson. In a world ruled by illusion, the greatest power lies in seeing clearly and choosing to act accordingly. In just a few minutes, we peeled back the curtain on the ruthless mechanics of power, from Machiavelli's exile and the birth of the prince to the psychological forces that elevate illusion over substance. We saw how overconfidence often outshines expertise, why loyal sycophants drown out critical voices, and how broken systems reward spectacle instead of skill. By confronting these timeless truths, we gain the tools to see past the mask and demand genuine leadership rooted in integrity and accountability. If you found this deep dive eye-opening, hit subscribe and click the bell to stay updated on more insights into the forces that shape our world. Share this video with friends who crave deeper understanding. And let's spark genuine and meaningful conversations that challenge the status quo. Together, we can elevate substance over showmanship and rewrite the rules. What hidden dynamics of power do you feel truly influence your life today?